Depending on what you're looking for in Wild Beyond the Witchlight, the idea of virtual tabletop battle maps might seem a little counterintuitive. After all, Chris Perkins already shared with us that
a clever party can get through this adventure without ever having to resort to combat if they don't want to.
But let's be honest, how many of you have players who are going to make it through an entire 8-level adventure module without smashing something? Yeah, I didn't think so. Me neither. What's up, gamers? I'm Josh, this is Copper Dragon Games, and on this channel we talk about Dungeons & Dragons, usually virtual tabletop resources. Today we're looking specifically at some battle maps and other map assets that I believe will look particularly good in your Wild Beyond the Witchlight games. I'm sure the adventure itself will come with some maps, but if there's anything about D&D that we can be certain of, it's that your players will go off the beaten path. And even if every single encounter in the adventure module has a battle map that goes with it, we're still going to need some extras for when your players do something nobody anticipated. But enough talking, let's actually look at those maps. Let's start with an obvious map set, one that Gabriel just released, Critical Trails Fey Forest. It's a great companion piece to the older Enchanted Forest set, which I've had for a while. Between the two, there are a good number of pre-made maps as well as map assets that you can use to customize them or build your own. I really like how all these forest scenes have all this magical energy just drifting around, leaning into the otherworldliness of the Feywild. It's all just a big reminder to players that this place is weird and magical and awesome. I also really like that there's a day and night version of each map, but in Foundry I doubt I'll use both since we have such awesome lighting tools built into the program. What might be the best part is that each of these integrate really nicely with his more generic forest sets, so you can mix and match assets from all of these to make unique maps of your own. And speaking of mixing and matching assets, if you prefer building your own maps with tiles in your VTT, or doing it separately in a graphic design program like GIMP, you might want to check out the Vile Tiles range, which focuses specifically on those smaller elements that make up the map rather than providing playable content right away. For adventures in the Feywild, I'd recommend checking out 3 of these sets in particular. The first is just called Trees. It sounds like a simple concept, and it is, but if you're building a Fey-inspired world, you're going to want your forest to come alive with vibrance and color. In the Trees set, you get the usual sets of trees that you'd expect, but you also get variations that include fall colors, reds and yellows, as well as lots of fruit trees, and my favorite, these trees with little motes of mystical lights hovering around them. Perfect for the Feywild. You get a handful of these in some of the sets that I mentioned before, but this expands your collection exponentially. The next set is Overgrown Decals, which gives you lots of different vegetation that's shaped perfectly to go into structures. Maybe you've got a map with some ruins that you want to add a Fey touch to before you use it in a Wild Beyond the Witchlight side quest. Make it look like the trees of Thither have taken over the place with this set. And yes, technically you could do the same with any old plant assets, but these are already grouped into shapes that make it super easy to incorporate them into structures. If there's any idea I can get behind, it's making things easier on yourself during prep, so you can focus on things like story, NPCs, encounters, etc. And since we're talking about an overabundance of plant life, you should definitely check out the Plants set. Sure, plenty of these look like your run-of-the-mill bushes and shrubs, but there are plenty of plants in here that look magical and possibly dangerous. Exactly what I want the vegetation in the Feywild to be. Unless this is your first time watching one of my videos, it may seem weird to see me previewing so much of this art on Roll20. There's a reason for that, and don't worry, I'm definitely not going back. I still find Roll20 incredibly lacking in comparison to Foundry Virtual Tabletop. But Roll20's been in the market for a long time, and their marketplace is pretty robust. I have a weird shopping method where I generally look for things on Roll20 first, because their marketplace gives such good previews of the files, and then go to check to see if I can buy them elsewhere. Sometimes it isn't possible, but I'd rather funnel my money into the Drive-Thru RPG marketplace whenever I can. I still make the occasional purchase on the Roll20 marketplace because most of what you find there can be downloaded and used in Foundry. But be very careful when you purchase there, because you might run into this little warning. Buy something with this little graphic and you're stuck using it on Roll20, which is, well, a less than stellar experience compared to using it in Foundry. But let's step down from the soapbox and get back to the maps. Now, I don't know how much of Prismeer is going to dig into the darker, spookier aspects of the Feywild, but if you want to make sure there are places in your adventure that show a contrast to the bright and cheerful look that I think most of the book will focus on, you may want to check out the Cursed Woods sets. These sets are similar in a lot of ways to the Fey Forest sets, but the trees are darker and the magic is this sickly green-yellow color that you probably wouldn't want your PC to touch. You still get this really interesting magical forest, but one that seems more likely to be home to a hag than a bunch of cheerful pixies. The assets we've covered in this video have focused specifically on Thither, but Wild Beyond the Witchlight promises a wider variety of Feywild terrain. In a future video, we'll be looking at maps that I think will be useful in Hither and Yon, and maybe some carnival assets to spice up your Witchlight carnival scenes as well. If you're not sure where to find these map assets, I've got links in the description below. And even more suggestions over on my website, copperdragongames.com. If you purchase any of the maps with the links that are provided below or on my website, a portion of the purchase goes to support this channel without actually affecting how much you pay. But if you really want to support Copper Dragon Games, the best way to do that is to head over to Patreon and join us there. For just a few bucks a month, you get complimentary copies of everything that I produce on DriveThruRPG and full access to the Copper Dragon's Horde add-on for Foundry Virtual Tabletop, which includes many of the assets that I create for DriveThruRPG adapted and ready to go for play in Foundry. Come on over, check us out, join the conversation. We'll see you next time.